Welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow Season 9. Our theme is Empowering Billion Dreams. And as you are aware, Leaders of Tomorrow is the country's largest entrepreneurship program. And we have been talking about supporting SMEs, MSMEs, and startups. But this season, we are taking it one step further. And we are actually going to deep dive into this entire entrepreneurship ecosystem and figure out the key weak spots where we need to work as a country, as an economy, to really bring them up. And we have a very special guest with us who actually specializes in identifying strengths and weaknesses when it comes to companies, large corporates, startups, and SMBs. We have a very special guest with us, Mr. Madhu Kela. Sir, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Sir, in fact, you have been part of this journey. You were with us in Leaders of Tomorrow season 8 as well. And one of the key observations that I think we both felt for Leaders of Tomorrow was it is very critical to set the objective right for the company. And to do that, in fact, we have kept the objective of empowering companies for Leaders of Tomorrow as one of our key objectives for running this series. Because what we realized was that while we can keep talking about the macro ecosystem and how companies should operate, it is very critical to identify that how they can strengthen their balance sheets, which are the various funding options, which are the avenues where they should look at for expanding their businesses. So, what is your key, I would say, remarks on that?
So I think, Mail, it is a very interesting thing, from an entrepreneurial perspective, because when we choose the best companies out of India, best entrepreneurs, they become kind of inspiration. And when a let's say it comes in a media platform, it actually benefits millions of people to think who are entrepreneurs and investors. What is the characteristic of a really good company? How does the entrepreneur do build up a good company? How investors approach into these companies? And as we are going towards Atmanirbhar Bharat theme in manufacturing, which is kind of lagging behind in India for some time, I think the government and the Prime Minister has put tremendous amount of emphasis. So I think this show would not have been better timed than this. When you're on for the first time, you're talking of like a 2 lakh crore rupees of PLI scheme benefit coming to boost manufacturing and exports in India. Your corporate taxation is being reduced to 15-16%. We have never heard of. It's comparable to best of the countries in the world. So this show, I would say, is very, very timely. It will help bring, best of the entrepreneurs on the platform. Those entrepreneurs will benefit. These companies will benefit. The investors and the potential investors will benefit, and lakhs of other entrepreneurs who will watch this show, they will also benefit. So congratulations to you and the entire team of ET Now.
Right. So now, one of the things that we have realized in this pandemic is maybe initially people did not understand that where we are headed as an economy, or especially what will happen to small and medium businesses. Government took its own initiative. They announced various schemes. But I think one of the biggest scheme which is announced is actually a very long-term project for India as an economy, and that is the PLI scheme, which you just mentioned. At a macro level, what is your takeaway from the PLI scheme? Because this has potential to actually rectify the lagging manufacturing sector for India.
I would say, me, a lot of thought has gone into identifying and implementing this PLI scheme. As I see it, they have carefully looked at what are the sectors where India can become competitive, what kind of support do we require for it to become competitive. Let's say I hear Apple is coming in India in a big way. Now, one Apple will not make the whole ecosystem. Around Apple, you need to make a tremendous amount of ecosystem, and you need to make this ecosystem and the companies very, very competitive. And this PLI scheme is aimed in that direction. Essentially, let us say mobile manufacturing in India is 5 to 7% more inferior to, let's say, China or Vietnam. Now, our companies need this support for maybe 5 or 7 years till the time they become very competitive. So the government has announced roughly 2 lakh crore rupees of incentive towards this PLI scheme. So if I just do a rough math, for availing 2 lakh rupees of incentive, assume that 5% is on an average incentive, you'll have to do a turnover of 40 lakh crores, in the
Mhm.
manufacturing side in the next 5 years in these 10 sectors which are being identified. So that will lead to tremendous amount of job creation, lots of economic value getting unlocked. And in some sectors, India will become very dominant player, and we will have a tremendous amount of exporting opportunity because the government is going to provide this support.
Right. So, as the name of the show goes, Leaders of Tomorrow, the show and this entire initiative is about identifying leaders of tomorrow or winners of tomorrow. And we have a track record to prove that we have identified various such companies. But currently, we are in a unique situation. At this point, if you were looking at somebody who could be a potential leader of tomorrow from company point of view, which are the key ingredients that you would look at? Companies who have survived well and are debt free in this environment, or companies who are willing to borrow at such low interest rates and willing to expand? What would be your choice?
In any capital structure, Mihir, debt and equity are both combined as a good mix, and a healthy mix is very important. Because if you have funded everything through debt only, then your ROEs will not come. And if you are heavily
Hmm.
indebted, you're at some point of time, if the business cycle doesn't go in your favor, you could be at risk of losing your business itself. So I would say that a proper balance between equity and debt is what is needed. I would not vouch for having a debt-free company in this kind of low interest rate regime. And specifically, if you're running stable businesses, if you're looking at predictable profits in your business, there's no harm having, a reasonable amount of debt in the balance sheet. So I would look at, more important than that, Neil, it is, you can have whatever mix of debt and equity you want. Finally, what makes a business is blend of three things. A is the capital structure, which you said is very important. B is the entrepreneur and the management team. That is the most important thing which I have looked in my career whenever I've been investing, because, and C is the what kind of business you are in.
Right. Now, keep coming back to the PLI scheme, sir. If we look at these 10 sectors, clearly India needs to focus on these sectors, and overall, they sort of create a very important critical structure when it comes to the overall manufacturing sector in India. According to your analysis right now, which are the key sectors where you see better opportunity for growth from, I would say, corporate point of view also, profits also, and maybe future opportunity, keeping this in mind?
With the help of this PLI scheme, in the next 5 to 7 years, India could export as much as 75 to $100 billion worth of mobile phones. So that is the kind of opportunity which we are talking about. Now, this is something which we have not seen. This level of exports, this level of this scale of export is something which we have not seen. So it took a while for optimists like me also to digest it, how it can go from $3 billion to $75 billion. And that is the precise thing which I am saying, that, let's say 75 is not possible or 100 is not possible. Even if we go from $3 billion to 30 to 40 billion dollars, that also will be a 10x increase. Just imagine the snowballing impact it will have on the economy. So I am saying all these sectors which are being chosen, they've been chosen very carefully. To be honest with you, I have not looked at all the 10 sectors, but like for instance, I'm very familiar with the pharmaceutical and the API side of the business. That business has
Hmm.
tremendous potential, because right now, let's say if China is at 90%, we are at 5%, and the rest of the world may be
Hmm.
5%. For if we go from 5 to 10, we will have 100% growth. While
Right.
China may come down from 90 to 85%, it will not impact them so much. But this
Hmm.
5% going up and 100% going up, this scheme of PLI for even for pharma sector, along with supported with a very good infrastructure, that is what was missing. In a manufacturing business, me 5% is a lot. When you're talking of
True.
14, 15, 12%, 13% kind of EBITDA, you add 5% to that EBITDA margin. You are talking of 30% incremental in terms of EBITDA margin. So it is a lot of support, and it is done very carefully. It is done for a period of 5 years. So it will make a lot of manufacturing and exports viable out of our country.
Sir, you are known for actually identifying hidden gems, and last 6 to 8 months have been a very rough ride for stock markets as well. And obviously, you have an eye for identifying performers when they are really lying low below the radar from mid cap and small cap universe as well. In last 6 to 8 months, which are the sectors where you have identified most opportunities? Maybe they were not talked about or they were not on the radar for other investors, but you found them good. And the reason I'm asking you this question is because they somewhere also represent a very large unlisted universe of the SMB ecosystem that we have in the country.
I would say I call them bear market survivor. So they actually exist in a lot of sectors. And this
Hmm.
bear market is not only the COVID bear market of last 6 9 months. If you look at the corporates, India has been going through the cleansing process where the fittest have survived, people with good intention, people with best corporate governance, people with healthy debt equity ratio. Those are the companies which have survived. And the cleansing has been going on for last 6 7 years, ever since this government came in power. So now people who have seen demonetization, people who have seen, COVID, people who have seen ILFS crisis, people who have seen, the cleansing of the overall system, the tax compliance. So if you see in the last 6 7 years, anyone who has gone through this rhetoric and has still survived and is a good balance sheet. So those are the companies which have been in my radar. I am very, very excited, to be honest with you, to identify these companies, to work very closely on these companies, to interact with these entrepreneurs, because they have really seen a very, very rough weather. जैसे बोलते हैं ना बहुत, वो समुद्र मंथन में अमृत निकलने के लिए बहुत सारा जहर निकलना उगलना पड़ता है ना, और वो मंथन पूरा होना पड़ता है. तो आई वुड से ये छः
Right.
सात साल का जो मंथन हुआ है ना, इट्स बीन अ वेरी गुड थिंग फ्रॉम अ corporate perspective, that all the weak players have gone away in various industries, and now the healthy ones which exist for them, I think next 5 10 years will be a real clear big opportunity. Now on tap it off,
Right.
you look at these companies and then you say, now for this survivor there is a PLI scheme. So I have 5% added advantage if I have survived.
Correct, that's true. But from economy or corporate performance point of view, uh, can we safely now say that pandemic will go whenever it has to go and it will run its course? But from economic performance point of view, the worst is behind us?
I would say, Mihir, that what we saw in March, when we did not know how
Hmm.
long is it going to last, whether it will last for 6 months or 6 years. At that time, that was also not clear. We have never seen a vaccine being ready for any kind of disease. But you look at the advancement of the science. No one would have predicted that in 10 12 months there will be possibility of a vaccine coming out of the top three pharmaceutical companies in the world. So there is a hope now that we may have seen the worst, because in March this was not clear. Just imagine if there was no vaccine for 3 years, then what do you do? The economic
Right, that's
performance
true.
actually could have been far worse than what we would have anticipated, and that is what was the market expecting or discounting at that point of time. सो वही मैं बोल रहा हूँ ना, बहुत जितने वीक हार्ट वाले थे ना मीर, उन्होंने गिव अप कर दिया ये पेंडेमिक में
Right.
एट दैट पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम. एंड नाउ whoever has remained, I would say we have seen the worst, and things are already looking up, as you see already in the last 3 months, whether it is sales in the real estate or sales in the auto sector, on cement side, things are definitely looking up. And I am pretty optimistic that India will see a double-digit GDP growth rate next year. If we have a vaccine and if we have a fair chance at the vaccine before March, we will see a double-digit growth rate next year.
Well, that sounds like music to ears. So my next question, a follow-up to what you just answered, is probably this, last 6 to 8 months may have been best period for somebody like you who would have figured out a lot of investment opportunities at a very reasonable valuation, or maybe even I would say below par valuation. The other part of it is maybe this is the best time for somebody, an entrepreneur who has survived the pandemic and who's looking to expand, because maybe he will never get a combination of macro factors like this as a tailwind for his business. Is that the correct conclusion?
I think it's a very fair assumption. But personally, for
Hmm.
investors, obviously we had to also go through a lot of pain, Mihir, because you saw what kind of cut
Right.
the portfolio saw in the month of March. We have not seen a situation like this when the market corrects from, let's say, 12,000 to 7,500, and so many mid cap companies become half or 30% in matter of 1.5 month. These kind of pandemics have proven that there is very little which is there in your hand. When the external
Right.
situation becomes this kind of a thing, there's nothing which you can do. But personally, for me, I would say I put my head down, and it's been I really really worked hard in the last 6 9 months, and it's been on the balance. I learned a lot, and I think I would have come out as a much wiser investor than what I was in the past.
Yeah, I'm sure. So, two, three sectors where I want to focus because they are also, when it comes to the SME ecosystem in India, they form a very critical part of it. One you have already partially touched upon, which is the pharma space. But apart from that, the auto ancillary industry or the hospitality industry. Now, these two industries currently are at, I would say, opposite poles. So, one has already seen a major revival because the auto demand is back, and how the other extreme is hospitality, where we are still seeing struggle. And even if you speak to government officials, even they are not very clear in terms of when the entire sector will pick up. If somebody is operating in these two sectors, and especially at a SME level, in that turnover range, what would be your suggestion to them? Because they've already seen probably the worst in terms of macro environment. Now, what
Yeah.
they should do?
If we divide this into two parts, Mihir, I think there
Mhm.
will be a tremendous amount of travel boom because people are just tired sitting at home for last 6 8 months. First available opportunity, a lot of people would like to go for a vacation. They would like to go for travel. They will, explore things because again, we've been sitting at home or you've been with very limited people. So I see on the tourism side there will be tremendous amount of boom, and all that pent up demand which is there will catch up. However, I'm very cautious on the business travel side. I think business travel and the people who are dependent on business travel, people like you and me. मेरा 2 meeting होता था. I would just take a flight and go to Delhi. Now I say, okay,
Right.
it is possible to do a Zoom call, and I will only go for a business travel when it really becomes compulsory. So I think business travel, in my opinion, will take a little while before it goes to pre-COVID levels and really picks up. But on the leisure side, I'm quite optimistic that all the pent-up demand will come, and as soon as people really are out of this fear of corona and the vaccine is reality, and at least even the critical people, if they can get vaccinated, so you will see a lot of boom on the travel side.
Right. What about auto ancillary? Because they are directly linked to the performance of auto, and we have seen, I think, great comeback from not only passenger vehicle but even commercial vehicle, and even bigger impact, positive impact on the tractor side. So, what would be your
I think
advice to companies operating in that space?
auto ancillary companies will do well. We have to just hold on to our basics, keep cutting, working on the cost is what I would say, keep making sure that you are lean and trim. And I think the demand will come. And again, I'm sure you have seen it carefully. There is a PLI incentive which is
Yes.
been given for auto and auto ancillary industries also. And in this industry, the margin is not very high. Most of these auto ancillary
True.
companies operate at 9-10% margin, and any kind of incentive of this nature will actually help them quite a bit. So again, people who have survived, I would say selectively, a lot of these companies will do well.
One last question, Madhu, because we'll have to continue our conversation going forward also in the series when we do more deep diving at a company level.
Sure.
But just to sum it up, your three key advices to the entrepreneurs at this point who are looking at not only surviving but thriving in this new environment right now, your three key suggestions or advice to them.
So I'll come back, Mihir. I think a lot of the success which I have seen uh, around people around me first comes out of real passion and dedication. So whatever you are doing, if you are really passionate about it, if you are really dedicated, if you are really putting the hard work on that, then I think a lot of the battle is won. The second
Mm.
thing is basically having a very good team along with you from an entrepreneur perspective, because you alone cannot do. So you have to have a really good team. And third, you have to choose your business very wisely and be optimistic about it. See, Mir, one thing which I learned in last 9 months, lot of the people and very, very intelligent people I know, became really pessimistic. क्या होगा पता नहीं है.
Mm.
I've seen people selling 10-20% of their portfolio, working towards really crisis management. And I talk to them, I meet them. You don't feel good. I don't even want to meet these people. But what worked really for me, I was optimistic throughout that, mankind and history has proven we have had world wars, and still the world came out much better than what it entered into. So you see any pandemic in the world, any pandemic, the world has come
Mm.
out much better than what it entered into. And there has been a reflection trade or a bull market after the pandemic is over. This has been the history for last 100 years.
Absolutely, sir. I think that's a very good advice to start with. And like I mentioned, we are going to keep troubling you throughout this series.
I look forward to that, mate. All the very best.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much.